Okay. Okay, good evening everyone. We're going to start on time. I want to thank everyone for taking some time to come out. It's Thursday night before Shabbos, before Yantif. We are all definitely immersed tremendously in the preparations for Yantif. And so it really says a lot that people would come out to study Torah a little bit late on a Thursday night so that we could generate the spiritual and emotional and religious momentum that we're all searching for as we approach Yom Noraim. And so it's a great kavod for us in our shul to be able to host Rav Tzvi Sobolofsky. Rabbi Sobolofsky is a Rosh Yeshiva at Yeshiva University, where he gives one of the highest shiurim in the yeshiva, including the training of the smicha students in terms of psak halacha and all sorts of areas of halacha. Rav Sobolofsky is the Rav of Congregation Or Torah in Bergenfield. And Rav Sobolofsky is intimately involved with Talmud Torah and Limud Torah to many people of many ages from many backgrounds. When I used to work in NCSY, I don't know if I ever told you I used to work in NCSY. So Yeah. So when I used to work in NCSY, we used to run a program called Yarchei Kala. And Yarchei Kala was where we had like 300, maybe even 3,000 public school kids that would come together for 3 days, 5 days, and we would learn together. And Rav Sobolofsky would always do the Ask the Rabbi session. And he would stand up in front of completely non-frum teenagers and field their questions with such sensitivity and such depth and such sense of validation. And then at the end, he would give out his cell phone number to all of them, and they would call him with shilas, and they would call him with questions. And it's very unique to have one individual that's able to give shiurim at the highest level in our most prestigious and illustrious yeshivas, and also be able to get on the phone with somebody who's completely not religious, struggling with how to grow in the context of their family life. And the reason why there's one individual that can do all of those things and reach all those different types of people is because Rav Sobolofsky exudes a tremendous sense of Ahavas Torah. And his passion for Torah and his enthusiasm for Torah is something that is so authentic and so real and so sincere and so enthusiastic and inspirational. I'm very, very fortunate to be able to have a wonderful relationship. Rabbi Sobolofsky is available all the time to answer shilas for many people. Rabbi Sobolofsky has answered many of your shilas, even though you've never spoken to him, including one of you this morning. And it's a relationship that I treasure very deeply, and so for us it's a tremendous kavod to have him here with us tonight. So please give your attention to Rabbi Sobolofsky.
Many years ago, before I got married, I gave a shiur, and I grew up in Riverdale, so I gave a shiur about the background of the history in the sense of Tekiyah Shofar, why we blow, what we blow, when we blow. And there was an elderly gentleman there who, I don't know whether he followed all the lumdus and all the background, all the shilas, that's what I was talking about. But I noticed he was a Holocaust survivor. And he came up to me at the end of the shiur, and he said to me, Rabbi, I'm going to give you a shot why we blow so much. He says, because it really, really hurts inside. We just have to tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it just really, really, really hurts. So I was a little bit floored at the time, because here I had prepared this whole Talmudic report, back and forth to the Rambam and Rabbeinu Tam and there. And he got to the core, to the heart and soul of it, that it hurts inside, and we want to come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu Rosh Hashanah and just let it all out. So the answer is, and I think both are true, that hopefully when we finish the halachic part of the shir, the lamdish part of the shir, so we'll try to speak a little bit about what we're really speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu from our heart and soul, from literally inside our kishkes, what we're trying to tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what message we're trying to get across to the Rebbeinu Shalom and Rosh Hashanah. But before we understand what the hashkafa is all about, let's see if we can really delve into the sugya of Tekiah Shofar and really get a little bit of a better understanding as to what we do, when we do, why we do. The very mitzvah of Tekiah Shofar can be a very daunting one. A person who walks into shul, especially if they haven't davened before Rosh Hashanah, and they're not quite sure what's going on. We're blowing here, we're blowing there, and we're blowing again, we're blowing a third time, and we're coming and going. We're not quite sure what are we trying to accomplish. So the answer is, it is somewhat complicated. I'm going to try to make it into a little bit simpler for tonight, to understand and to see why we do what we do and when we do, concerning the mitzvah of Tekiah Shofar. So the sugya begins, those who have the following in the Marmakomos and the source sheets. So the Rambam, in the very beginning of the Marmakomos, in Perek Gimel Halacha Aleph, so the Rambam defines for us what the basic mitzvah of Tekiah Shofar is on a level of Deraisa, on a Torah level. So the Rambam begins by telling us, how many blasts of the shofar is a person obligated to hear on Rosh Hashanah according to the Torah itself? Now we know the Torah does speak about Rosh Hashanah being a Yom Truah, a Zichron Truah, so there's a mitzvah in our Torah, it's a mitzvah deraisa of Tekiah Shofar, but how many times to blow? Somewhat unclear. So the Rambam begins by quoting the Sugya Maseches Rosh Hashanah, Teisha Tekiyos. There are 9 sounds that a person has to hear. They're probably scratching at it thinking, wait a second, I'm sure an awful lot longer than that. We'll get there. But there are 9 times you have to hear the shofar during the course of Rosh Hashanah. How do I know this? Very simple math. The magic word trua, which refers to the blasting of a shofar, appears 3 times in Chumash. 2 times in the context of Rosh Hashanah, 1 time in the context of Yom Kippur in the Yovel year, in the 50th year, when in the olden days they used to actually blow the shofar on Yom Kippur the same way we blow on Rosh Hashanah. According to some opinions, the custom that we have of blowing a shofar at the very end of Yom Kippur may be a little bit of a throwback to that, perhaps, maybe yes and maybe no. But in the olden days they used to actually blow the shofar on Yom Kippur every 50 years. So it says the word trua 3 times in the Chumash, and the Rambam continues on the second line, every time we blow a trua means that's some kind of a broken sound. Every time we blow a trua, it has to be preceded by a tekiah, by a straight sound, a pshuta, and it has to be followed by a tekiah, by a straight sound as well. So the basic surah, the basic format of the mitzvah of Tekiah Shofar is 3 truos. We haven't yet defined precisely what a trua is, but 3 truos. Each trua has to be preceded, sandwiched between 2 tekiyahs. And the Rambam continues with Piyah Shmuah Lamdu. Whenever the Rambam tells us with Piyah Shmuah, so the Rambam refers to that it's a Torah Shabbat Peh. It's a tradition that we have generation to generation, all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu. So the basic form of Tekiah Shofar is something that has been done for over 3,000 years. Shel Chodesh HaShekol Truah Shel Chodesh HaShvi Echad Hein Bein Rosh Hashanah Bein Yom Kippur Shel Yovel. All blowings of shofar in the 7th month, i.e. Chodesh Tishrei, are all the same. Teisha Tekiyos Token V'cholechem Mishnein Tekiah Trua Tekiah Tekiah Trua Tekiah Tekiah Trua Tekiah. That is shofar min HaTorah. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu to tell the Jewish people to blow shofar in Rosh Hashanah, that is what he told them. Blow Tekiah Trua Tekiah Tekiah Trua Tekiah Tekiah Trua Tekiah. That should take a total of about a minute to do, and if you just remember back from last year, we do an awful lot more than that. And the question is, where did that come from? So we go on to the second of the Marmakomos. The Gemara in Maseches Rosh Hashanah Daf Lamed Aleph tells us, Iskin Rabbi Abo b'Kisrei. Rabbi Abo was the rabbi in the city of Kisrei. Kisrei is the modern-day city of Caesarea. It's interesting, the Gemara tells us that Rabbi Abo lived in Kisrei. Kisrei was primarily a Roman city. It wasn't really a Jewish outpost. It was actually the Roman seat of government in Eretz Yisrael at the time. The reason why Rabbi Abo lived there, he was a Rav in a shul there, was because he was one of the representatives to the Roman government on behalf of the Jewish people. And there, it's like living in a sense like in Washington, D.C. So he had to live right near the government seat of power. So he lived in the city of Caesarea. Unfortunately, the city of Caesarea had a very not pleasant history. It was the place where the Roman stadiums were and the gladiator fights were, a lot of very, very sad things that took place in the city of Caesarea a couple of years ago in NCSY Kolos, since you mentioned my role in NCSY. So they were running a trip to the city of Caesarea, to Caesarea, and they wanted to know whether they wanted to come along. So I asked them, well, what was on the agenda? What are we going to visit? So they said, well, we're going to go see the old stadiums, whatever was left. I said, to go watch and see where Romans used to kill people 2,000 years ago, I didn't consider that to be a tremendous thing. But I did offer to say, if you can show me Rabbi Abba's shul is, where he instituted the Tkiyah Shofar that we do today, I'll be happy to come along, and they couldn't find it. So I stayed back in Kovel, and I enjoyed my day off. So Rabbi Abba in the city of Kisri instituted the following practice. He said that when we blow shofar in Rosh Hashanah, what we should do is as follows. Tkiyah, Shlosha Shvarim, Trua, Tkiyah. Where did that come from? We were talking about truas, and all of a sudden we see something called the Shvarim. We'll give you a little bit of a background. There was a machlokas, there was a dispute way back, way before the days of Rabbi Abba. There was a dispute what exactly a trua is. The Torah says, Yom Trua Yalochem. Well, what is a trua? So there were fundamentally two, and then in a sense became three, different interpretations of what trua means. Why is there any discrepancy as to what the word trua means? Because the translation of the word trua means a cry. So the Gemara explains to us that different people cry in different ways. Some people cry, I try to act it out as best I can now. Should have brought some of my kids to act out for me. One of my kids here, Baruch Hashem, past the age of the crying. So some people cry like this. That's what we call a shvar. Some people, they lose it. That's called a trua. And some people, they go, they start off in control, and then they start to lose control. So the Gemara tells us there are three different possibilities as to what precisely the term means, what the term trua means. And therefore, Rabbi Abba instituted in Kisri that when we blow shofar, what we should do is as follows. We should blow Tkiyah, Shvarim, Trua, Tkiyah. Why? The Gemara explains, they're covered on all fronts. If it's what we call today a trua, it's very, very quick cries, levet tkiyah, trua, tkiyah. So wait a second, if it's really just quick cries, let's just do that. If it's a little bit longer wails, like we call shvarim, levet tkiyah, shlosha shvarim, tkiyah. Why in the world do we blow a combination of the two? So the Gemara explains this was the problem. The Saf Galei Rabbi Abba wasn't sure. He wanted to be sure that we get all bases covered. So if the trua, if the intent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu was, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu was, what we call the shvarim, do, so you're covered. If it's what we call a trua, then you're also covered. So the Gemara says, not so fast. We'll leave out all the details. The Gemara questions, says, wait a second. But by blowing a combination of the two, you're in a sense being mafsik. You're interrupting within the mitzvah of Tkiyah Shofar. So it's not good enough just to do what we call Tkiyah, Shvarim, Trua, Tkiyah. That's not enough. What you then have to do is, after you finish that 3 times, then you have to do Tkiyah, Shvarim, Tkiyah. And then that's not enough either. You have to do Tkiyah, Trua, Tkiyah. Only if you do all 3 of the above, then you can say with certainty, if you didn't do all 3 of those combinations, you don't really know. There's only a 33% chance that you got it right. So it's based on this takwana, so to speak, this institution of Rabbi Abba, that Tkiyah Shofar has taken the form that we're familiar with. So let's just go back for a moment what happens right before Musaf, when we start the first set of Tkiyos. We recite the bracha, Shmokol Shofar, we recite Shechiyanu, and then if you think about this, exactly what we do. We blow what's called Tkiyah, Shvam, Trua, Tkiyah. To make it easy, we call Tashrak, Rashi tables for Tkiyah, Shvam, Trua, Tkiyah. We do that 3 times, because remember, the Torah says you have to blow 3 different sets. Then when we're done with that, still not done yet. Then we have to say Tkiyah, Shvarim, Tkiyah. We have to do that 3 times also, because maybe that's the real Trua. And then we're not done yet. Then you have to blow again, Tkiyah, Trua, Tkiyah. And only when you're all done with all of the above, then you can breathe a sigh of relief, and you could say with absolute certainty, Baruch Hashem, we're yotzei the mitzvah of Tkiyah Shofar. There's one of the ironies of the davening of Rosh Hashanah is the first words out of our mouth. After we have just spent the last 20 minutes blowing shofar, and so long and so complicated, because we have absolutely no idea what the real trua is, the strangest words come out of our mouth. Ashrei ha'am yodei srua. Baruch Hashem, for the nation that knows it. We have no idea what a trua is. So the answer is that's not what the pasuk really means, but it's cute that after we demonstrate that we have no clue what a trua is, Ashrei ha'am yodei srua. At least we got it. We hope we got it right. We don't know of any other possibility besides those three. So this is the basic format, the basic tzur of Tkiyah Shofar, as has been practiced for the last 1800 years or so, since the days of Rabbi Abba. So again, just to review for a moment, the mitzvah in Torah is Tkiyah, Trua Tkiyah 3 times. But we don't know what the Trua is, therefore we have to blow any and every possible Trua, add up all the math, and that's exactly what appears in our Machzor. There is a fascinating machlokes, fascinating dispute between the Rishonim. What exactly did the Gemara mean when the Gemara told us, we don't know what a Trua is? What do you mean you don't know what a Trua is? What did you do last year? What happened the year before? Rishonim didn't start in a vacuum. How did you forget? You can't remember what they blew the year before? So the third of the sources, the Ran, tells us that this question was already posed 1,000 years ago to Rav Hai Gaon. So if we take a look at the third of the sources, Eske Rabbi Abba b'Kisri b'Chumeh, Nishal Rav Hai Gaon Zal. It was asked of Rav Hai Gaon, V'chi ad shabo Rabbi Abba lo ha Yisrael yotze b'yidei Tkiyah Shofar. He said, well, and until Rabbi Abba came along, Rabbi Abba lived after the Churban, 200 years after the destruction of the second base of Mikdash, relatively late, so to speak, in Jewish history. What was going on until then? Half of Klal Yisrael, 2/3 of Klal Yisrael, we're not getting it right every year. If I davened in the shul that they were blowing truas, and when I come to Shemayim, the Chamer Yassim Shana, they tell me, by the way, you goofed, it was really a Shvarim. I said, how does it be? It doesn't make any sense. So Rav Hai Gaon explains a fascinating insight. It goes way beyond the details of Rosh Hashanah. It's important for the shul Rabbanim to know this Rav Hai Gaon. It's very, very important. Says Rav Hai Gaon, in the second line of the third of the sources, this is what he responded. Al tachshavu b'levavchem. Don't think ki b'mei Rabbi Abba nafal sofek b'davar zeh. Don't think that all of a sudden Rabbi Abba woke up one year in Rosh Hashanah and he realized that everyone's blowing different ways. There are already sources in Mishnayos from the days of the Tanoim, hundreds of years before Rabbi Abba was born. There were already different practices. Achas omeres trua gim yavavos, achas omeres trua shlosh shvarim. He said there were different sources, different practices, different customs throughout the time, throughout years before. So what's going on? How can it be? So I'm going to skip down a little bit to, it's the 5th line in the source. It's towards the middle of the line. It appeared to people that there was a machlokas in the Jewish people. People thought, some people are blowing shofar this way, and some people are blowing shofar another way. It must be that some people are yotzei, and some people are not yotzei, and it's not true. It's not really a machlokas. You know why? Because they're all acceptable. Any and every one of these possible blowings are acceptable to perform the mitzvah. Why is that? Because when HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu to tell the Jewish people to blow trua, you know what the definition of a trua was? The definition was a broken sound, a crying sound. Any and every sound that mimics a cry is acceptable for Tkiyah Shofar. Therefore, the people who blew shvarims were yotzei, and the people who blew truas were yotzei, and the people who blew a combination of shvarim truas were also yotzei. Everybody's good. Everyone's yotzei. Nobody was doing it wrong. There was no right way or wrong way. As long as it's a broken sound, as long as it sounds like a cry, it's surrounded by tkiyas, that is acceptable for the mitzvah of Tkiyah Shofar. So if so, why was Rabbi Abba driving everybody? Why is Rabbi Abba spending so much time and making the davening so much longer? Just pick one and finished. You know why? So we take a look towards 2 lines from the bottom of the source. He wanted to create uniformity in the Jewish people. He wanted to create that everybody should be happy in Rosh Hashanah. People who didn't understand, they thought, those Jews in that shul, they're Shvarim Jews. They don't know what they're doing. That guy over there, he blows truas. He's not religious altogether. The guy blows Shvarim, he's an Apikoros Legamre, he's a koifer. Rabbi Abba wanted Rosh Hashanah, everybody should feel at home. You can imagine what would happen. You come to shul on Rosh Hashanah. My whole life I grew up in a Shvarim shul. I'm going to walk in the shul, and Rabbi Glass is telling me, and after we blow truas. The rabbi doesn't know what he's talking about. It's crazy what happened. My grandfather blew Shvarim. We don't want to get into fights. Everybody should be happy. So everyone should walk away Rosh Hashanah feeling, just like in the Alpha I heard the Shvarim, like my Zayda heard Shvarim, I heard the Truth, like my Zayda heard the Truth, everybody's happy. And for that reason, we go so out of our way to make sure that everybody feels good on Rosh Hashanah. But bottom line, says Rav Eichbaum, if you heard one certain, the bottom line is any and every of the above is really acceptable for the mitzvah of Teshuvah. That's one entirely fascinating approach with many, many ramifications outside the realm of Rosh Hashanah, but we'll leave it to your imagination about how important Midas HaShalom is. That we'd rather keep people in shul long than Rosh Hashanah. Maybe we took a vote. Some people would say, listen, Rabbi, we're okay fighting, just get us home 5 minutes earlier, but Rabbi Bo voted, and the Chazal voted. It's more important to have Shalom in Rosh Hashanah than to get people home on time. Comes the Rambam, though, in the fourth of the sources, and has an entirely different take on what's going on. The Rambam tells us in Perek Gimel Lachametz, true is Amur b'Torah. The word true in the Torah, nistapek lonu basofek. We have a suffix about it. That doesn't sound exactly what Rav Haim was saying. Rav Haim was saying there's no real suffix, everyone's good. The Rambam says it's a suffix, and the Rambam even gives you some historical insight. How did this suffix happen? Remember, we posed the question historically, what happened last year? The Rambam tells exactly what happened last year. With the Orech Hashanim, for Rov HaGolios. We've had a lot of exiles, and the Rambam is alluding to the fact that there were times in our history when it was very, very difficult to blow shofar. We know that for a fact, that there were times in our history where the non-Jews wouldn't let us blow shofar. There were specific decrees against the mitzvah of shofar. It was understandable why, because in the ancient world, Tkiyah Shofar was a call to arms, besides being a mitzvah of Tkiyah Shofar. And the Romans and others who controlled the Jewish people at different times in history, they weren't interested in any rebellions. And the Gemara tells us they would actually put spies, they would leave spies in the shul. They would send their Roman agents to infiltrate into the davening to make sure that nobody would blow shofar. So the Rambam tells us there were years when they probably didn't blow shofar. And if that happens enough time, so then guess what? People forget. You only have to take a look. Look at what happened. Years, in just a few years, a few decades in the Soviet Union, when it was very difficult to perform mitzvahs. You don't perform mitzvahs for a whole generation. Nebuch, look what happened. So there were times in our history when Tkiyah Shofar was under attack, and there were years when most people probably didn't hear shofar. In fact, we have a practice, until this very day, that's a throwback to those years of the government of the Romans used to try to spy on the Jewish people. If you think about it, we blow shofar at a very strange time in davening. Blow shofar Musaf time. We should blow shofar Shachris. There's a reason why giving the mitzvahs. You want to blow at the earliest possible time. Why should we wait till almost till 11 o'clock? It says shofar blowing at 11 o'clock. Shofar blowing should be at 9 o'clock in the morning, right in the middle of Shachris. So the Gemara explains to us that in the olden days they used to blow at Shachris. You know why we blow at Musaf? Because the Romans would come and they would spy on the Jewish people. They would stick a couple of people into the crowd and look around, but they're blowing shofar or not. So when the Rabbanim realized that, they said, we can't blow, it's too dangerous, they're going to kill us. So they stopped blowing shofar Shachris. So the Romans hung around, Shachris, such piyutim, Shachris, schlepping out a little bit. The Romans started to get tired. Then it came time for Kriyas Torah. The trough was very long, Rosh Hashanah. It's 3 times as long as regular lady. It's getting long. Then the rabbi got up to speak, and he gave us that drasha. And then he sees they're getting ready to start davening Musaf. And there was no Kiddush club, there was nothing, so they were getting hungry, they were getting tired. So the Gemara tells us that the Romans said, you know what, they're ready davening Musaf. What could possibly go wrong at this point? We're out of here. They signed out, they jumped out, they jumped ship. The Gemara says, when that happened, so quickly, all of a sudden they pulled out the shofar from the hiding place, they blew shofar in Musaf, because it was safe, the coast was clear. Ad hayom hazeh, Baruch Hashem, no one in Passaic is coming to spy on it. Until this very day, shofar appears in Musaf as a throwback to remember that it wasn't always so simple to blow shofar. It's clear from the Gemara that it was very, very difficult in times in history to blow shofar. The Mishnah speaks about one of the strangest things. The Mishnah speaks about a fellow who's blowing shofar into a barrel. Well, is he yotzei the mitzvah? Is he not yotzei the mitzvah? Is he hearing the shofar? Is he hearing the echo back and forth? A crazy nut on the shit. You ever stop and read that Mishnah thing? This is what the guys do in Rosh Hashanah. Nothing else to do in the Yom Adin but to blow into a barrel. So the answer is, the Rambam tells us, because there were times when They couldn't blow. People would go into hiding places. They would go into a back room somewhere and stick their heads into a barrel so no one outside should hear that they're blowing shofar. So it's interesting because all the halachas that we have today, microphones, all the discussion, can I say a bracha over a microphone, can I down to the Yom over a microphone, do a creed the Megillah over a microphone, it all comes from that sugya. Not that we thank the Romans for driving us crazy, but that whole sugya in halacha comes from those olden days when they had to blow nebuch in such crazy ways where the question was, are they hearing the sound and the echo, etc. So the Rambam tells us in the Shofar that it wasn't so simple to blow shofar, not such a pashut mitzvah to do, and therefore it makes a lot of sense that there was fakeness, and there were doubts, and there were sometimes you would have a shul that didn't hear shofar for many, many years, and I can't remember, when was the last time blew shofar? It was 10 years ago. What was that? What was the true? Was it do? Was it do? Can't remember. And the Rambam says it became a real bona fide suffix. According to the view of the Rambam, so then we have to really blow seriously. It's not just we're blowing all these extra sounds just to make people feel good about themselves and no fights. It's a real bona fide suffix, and in order to fulfill the mitzvah in the Torah, we have to blow all of the above. So when all the dust settles, at Tkiyah Shofar is the same, whether we're following the root of Hagon or the following the root of the Rambam. What appears in the Machzor is identical, but in Lomdus, conceptually, it's a very, very big difference. According to Rav Hagon, once I hear those first Tkiyah from Trua Tkiyahs 3 times, I'm Yotze, that's it. Minat Torah, I'm Yotze. Everything else is just to make peace. According to the Rambam, until I reach that point of Asher Yotze Sruah, I'm not sure that I was Yotze Minat Torah. I guess it's a difference for the rabbis, you know. One of the tense moments for a Rav is the time of Tkiyah. It should be a tense moment for everybody, but it's a tense moment of Tkiyah Shofar. It's a mitzvah Minat Torah. We want to make sure that we fulfill the mitzvah properly, so it's really the job of the Rav to make sure that everything is done Kiddush Chadin, everything is done properly. So, you know, if the Rav messes up somewhere by the Tkiyahs after Muslim is over, you know, you're not going to lose too much sleep. But if those first Tkiyahs don't come out so right, you know, you get nervous. Was I Yotzer? Not yours, I'm looking at my watch. Was I Yotzer? Was the Tkiyah good enough? Was it strong? Good enough? So the question is, at what point in the Rambam breathe a sigh of relief? I did my job for the year. So according to Hagon, you think 3 and you're good to go. You can take a step back, breathe deeply at the end. According to the Rambam, not so fast, not so simple. So up till now, what we've explained is exactly what takes place before Musaf. And by the time we get up to that Musaf, by the time the Chazan is singing Hineni, you know the Tkiyah Shofar is over Minat Torah. According to all opinions, we've been Yotze, the mitzvah derais at Tkiyah Shofar. Yeah, I'm not going to encourage you to go home at that point, but Lamaising go home at that point. Minat Torah, you were Yotze, the mitzvah Tkiyah Shofar. And then all of a sudden, everything changes. All of a sudden, Baruch Habu, with Avin Shemar Esrei, and believe it or not, all of a sudden Tkiyah Shofar takes place. Now again, depending on whether you daven Nusach Ashkenaz or Nusach Sfarad. If you daven Nusach Sfarad, so that Tkiyah Shofar is going to take place in your silent Shemar Esrei as well. If you daven Nusach Ashkenaz, then you're not going to hear it until the Chazar Sashatz. But everybody blows shofar at some point during Shemar Esrei, either private Shemar Esrei or public Shemar Esrei. I remember as a little boy, so I davened in a small shtibel in Riverdale and the minhag there was, even though they davened in Ashkenaz, but it had originally been in a Sfard shul, so somehow this minhag of blowing during silent Shemar Esrei stuck with us. So until I was 17 years old, I assumed that's how the entire Jewish world does. And then I had a rude awakening when I went off to Eretz Yisrael, and I said, wait a second, how did everybody blow during silent Shemar Esrei? I remember it was really, really hard, and one of the reasons why Nusach Ashkenaz doesn't do it is because it's very, very hard to coordinate, because I remember when I was a little boy, I said, daven really, really, really fast, and I would always get to the end of Malachios, and I'm sitting around and waiting, scratch me, when's the Baltic going to reach me? As I got a little bit older, my Shemar Esrei got a little bit longer, and I guess everyone else got a little bit shorter, so I reached a point when they were blowing shofar, and I was still in the bracha Magen Avram, so it wasn't so simple. So that's why the Mishnah Berurah says, why in Ashkenazi, in Nusach Ashkenaz shuls, they did away with Tkiyah Shofar in the silent Shemar Esrei. It's very, very complicated to coordinate properly. But in Chazar Sashatz, for sure, everybody blows, and Nusach Sfard blows even in the silent Shemar Esrei. So the question is, what are we doing that for? What went wrong with what we did up until that point? We were Yotze, we did the mitzvah properly. Why in the world are we repeating everything over again? So the Gemara tells us in the 5th of the sources, Lama token ring shem yoshvin, the token ring shem omdin. Why are we blowing twice? According to most opinions, what's called the Tkiyahs de Meyushav means the Tkiyahs before Musaf. Technically speaking, you could sit for those. Our customers, we stand up to Tkiyah Shofar, but theoretically you could sit because you're not davening, it's before davening, whereas the Tkiyahs during Shemar Esrei, everyone is presumably standing for, either because you're standing for Chazar Sashatz or because it's your silent Shemar Esrei, whatever the case may be. So why do we blow shofar twice? So the Gemara gives a very, very difficult answer. To mix up, to confuse the satan. What in the world does that mean? So there are two different approaches, multiple approaches, but two main opinions in the Rishonim. What in the world that phrase means? So Rashi interprets Arvis Satan to be that we're showing in Shemayim that we love mitzvahs so much. We can't get enough of this mitzvah. We're doing it once and again and again. We keep on taking and pulling out the shofar. It shows to HaKadosh Baruch Hu how much we endear, how endeared mitzvahs are to us, that the Satan in Shemayim, whatever that means, so the Satan says, I can't start with these people. They're too in love with mitzvahs, leave them alone in Rosh Hashanah. Tosfos quotes a fascinating pshat. Tosfos says, no, that's not what it means, says Tosfos. Tosfos says, we blow shofar in Rosh Hashanah. So again, whatever the Satan, whatever that concept means. So the Satan is sitting in Shemayim, and he hears the Jewish people blowing shofar. So he thinks, big deal. So they're blowing shofar, good. It's Rosh Hashanah, they're blowing shofar, good. So let them finish what they're doing. Then all of a sudden, an hour later, he hears the blowing shofar again. Again? The Satan says, what are they blowing already? They're already answering. So he's trying to think, what could possibly be going on in that world that I don't know about? So Tosfos goes to the Medrash, you know what's going on? Oh, it must be the Kav Shofar Gadol Cheresenu. He thinks Mashiach's coming. That's not good for him. Once Mashiach comes, he's out of a job. So the Satan gets all confused. They'll Arvis Satan. You would think he would be smart enough to figure out every year Mashiach hasn't come yet, but somehow he's a little behind the times. So whatever it is, the bottom line is, with Arvis Satan, whatever it means, Benikla, Bedista, very, very esoteric concepts, but that's what the Gemara tells us. That's what we do. That we repeat the entire blowing second time around, they'll Arvis Satan, again, to whatever that concept means, to, so to speak, confuse the Satan. In some yeshivas, so they have customs that after davening is over, so they blow a couple of extra kolos also for different chumras, different shitas, what shvam should sound like, shvam churus could sound like, different nuances. So in many yeshivas, after davening, after everyone's already left, so the few yechidei skula want to hear the extra chumras and extra kolos, so they blow. If you would sit and listen to all those kolos afterwards, not only would the Satan get confused, you would get confused also. Because you have to hold cup, where they're coming, where they're going. It's the problem is that each chumrah becomes a double chumrah. Because once you have a chumrah about a shvarim, then that becomes a chumrah about a shvarim trua. Once you have a chumrah about a trua, so everything becomes geometrically, so you can spend from the end of davening until the eve of Yom Kippur, just making sure you cover everybody's bases. But whatever it is, the bottom line is that everybody blows, what the Gemara says, everybody blows that the first set before Mosov, and then we repeat the blowing afterwards. So the Rishonim have a very, very powerful question on this practice that the Gemara tells us that we have to do, and we of course do until this very day. Isn't the extra blowing a violation of a Torah prohibition called Bal Tosef? You're not allowed to add on to the mitzvah Torah. Let's say a person would come to shul on the first day of Sukkot. He has an Esra, the Lulav, Hadass, and Arav. He's looking around and says, everybody has the same thing. It's the same Dalamidim. I want to stand out a little bit. I'm going to come with a unique one. I'm going to come with a lulav, esrog, and asrog, and a rose. That was wow, that's individuality, that's creativity. So that's an Issa Deraisa. That's a Torah prohibition about Tosef. You're not allowed to add on to the mitzvah. Let's say a person, instead of wearing regular tefillin like the rest of the Jewish people does, so he decides, 4 parshas, that's not enough for me. I'm going to get a 5th one on. I'm going to tack on Bereshis Bolakim. That's a really nice thing to think about every day. Why not? Another one for good luck. So that's an Issa Deraisa about Tosef. So comes Tosfos on the 6th of the Rambam, comes the next page of the sources, and Tosfos raises the question, Toking Marin Shir Omdim Tema, Haka'over Mishubal Tosef? Isn't that a violation of Bal Tosef? What right do you have to blow extra kolos, extra sounds, to mix up the Sultan on Rosh Hashanah of all day?